Struggling to get that full structured bubble effect in your bubble skirt or dress? In this video, you are going to cut and sew a bubble dress from scratch, step by step, which you can also use the down part to create a bubble skirt. So it's almost like 2 in 1. Let's get into it. Hi, Helena here. Welcome back to Curve&stitch. Please, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here are the things you need. You will only need 2 measurements if you are making a bubble skirt. But if you want to go a step further to add a bodice to the skirt, then you will need these additional measurements. So for the down part, I'll be using 360 degrees flare with added fullness for the main fabric. Then I'll cut 180 degree flare for the lining. So I'll start with the main fabric, that's the 360 degree flare with added fullness. So I will start by calculating the measurements we will need to cut the fabric. As I said before, you only need 2 measurements to cut the down part. So in this case, you will need your waist circumference measurement, then the skirt length measurement. The waist circumference I am using is 22.5 inches and the length of the skirt is 16 inches. The 22 inches we have for the waist circumference is the actual waist circumference for the purse. Now, since this design have added fullness at the waist, we need to determine the amount of fullness we need to add. So in this case, I'm going for 3 times the waist circumference. So I'm going to multiply the 22.5 inches by 3, which will give me 3 times the waist circumference, which is 67.5 inches. You can reduce the fullness based on your preference. So now the waist we are going to use with the added fullness is the 67.5, but we are going to add zipper at the back of the skirt. So we need to add zipper allowance to this measurement. So in this case, I'm adding 2 inches zipper allowance to the 67.5, which will give me 69.5. So now our waist circumference is 69.5. This is what we will use to calculate the radius for the waist. So to get the radius, we need to divide the new waist circumference, which is 69.5 inches, by 2 pi, which is 6.28, which gave me approximately 11 inches. So now our waist radius is 11 inches. So when you fold your fabric, that's in half, then in half again, you need to use the radius you will get from your calculation to cut the waist of the skirt. Thus, you measure from the folded edge of the fabric or the paper to the radius you get. So in this case, if I'll measure from the waist down 11 inches and mark all around to create the waist radius for the skirt. Now we need to determine the amount of fabric we will need to be able to cut this skirt. So we'll be using a skirt length measurement and then the radius of the skirt plus half-inch joining allowance. So the skirt length is 16 inches and the radius is 11 inches. So after adding these 3 measurements, I got 27.5 inches. So this means that when you fold your fabric, thus you fold it in half, then in half again, you need to at least get a measurement of 27.5 inches. So this is what I meant, that the length of your folded fabric should be equal to the length of the skirt plus the waist radius. So as you can see, measuring from the folded edge, the shortest part of the fabric measures 27.5 inches. Now I'll go ahead and cut the fabric for the skirt, as it is the same as cutting a full circle skirt. So I'll fold my fabric in half and then in half, then I'll cut the waist and then the hem of the skirt. After drawing the waist of the skirt, add half-inch seam allowance to enable you join the waist to your waistband or to join it to a bodice if you are making a dress. Go ahead and cut your waist just like so. Then your hem. So this is how your skirt will look like after cutting it out. Now let's go ahead and cut the lining for the bubble skirt or dress. So in this case, the waist I'm using is 22.5 inches. Then I'll add 2 inches zipper allowance to this 22.5 inches, making 24.5 inches. So now we are going to use this to look for the radius for the skirt. So for the lining, we are not going to cut a full circle, but rather we are going to cut only 1/4 of a circle. And the radius or the formula for calculating for a full circle is 6.28. And since this is just 1/4 of that circle, we are going to look for 1/4 of 6.28, which is 1.57. So to calculate the radius for this circle, we are going to use 1.57 as the radius formula. So in this case, we are going to divide 24.5 inches by 1.75 inches, which will give us 15.6 inches. So now the radius for the waist of this skirt is going to be 15.6 inches, and the skirt length I am using for this illustration is 16 inches. But since this is the lining, I'm going to subtract 4 inches from the lining. That means I'm making the lining 5 inches shorter than the main fabric. So 16 minus 5 inches will give me 11 inches. So the length of the lining will be 11 inches. Since this is just 1/4 of a circle, I'm not going to fold the fabric. I'm just going to open it and then look for one edge of the fabric to use as my start point to create the waist for the skirt. As you can see, I am not folding the fabric anyway. I'm just looking for one corner of the fabric to use as my start point to create the waist curve for the skirt. Now measuring from the corner, I'm going to measure and mark 15.5 inches for the waist radius. So I'll do this all around to create a curve for the waist, just like so. So now this is the waist curve for the lining. Now we need the length of the skirt. So I'm going to measure from the waistline or the waist curve 11 inches and mark all around to create the hem for the lining, just like so. After drawing the length of the lining, I'm going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance to be able to join the lining to the main fabric. So I'm adding 1/2 inch seam allowance all around at the hem. Then I'll add 1/2 inch at the waist to be able to join the skirt or the lining to the top part or to my waistband if you are creating a bubble skirt. So after cutting, this is what I have. As you can see, the lining is shorter than the main fabric. The waist circumference on the main fabric is 3 times the waist circumference of the lining. So we need to now gather the waist to the size of the lining. So I'll take this to my sewing machine, then I'll run a gather stitch on the waist to gather it. And the hem of the main fabric too is also 3 times the hem of the lining. So we need to also gather the hem of the main fabric to the size of the lining. So I will also take it to the sewing machine, then run a gather stitch at the hem, then gather it to the size of the lining, just like so. So after gathering, this is what I have. Now I will take my main fabric and attach the lining to the main fabric, right sides together, just like so. So I'll go ahead and pin it, then attach it. So I'll first attach the hem of the lining and the main fabric. After pinning, I'll take it to my sewing machine and then attach the lining to the main fabric, just like so. After attaching, this is what I have. If you are making a bubble skirt, then go ahead and add your waistband, then your zip, then finish the back, the zipper allowance to finish your skirt. But I'm going to go ahead and then add a bodice to make it a dress. So this is it after cutting the bodice and lining. Now go ahead and join the shoulder and side seam for the lining. Do the same for the main fabric too. I went ahead and created a bubble collar for the dress, but you don't need to do it if you don't like it. So I'll just go ahead and then attach the collar to the neck of the main fabric, right side together, just like so. You can take it to your sewing machine and stitch it, or you can just attach your lining to it too to finish the neckline of your bodice.
Was that even for? Was you playing your games? Was you really bored?
After attaching the lining, this is what you have. Go ahead and then trim the seam allowance, then give it a notch, just like so.
Did I see the size? Oh, after all that time, it's a shit for us. You don't wanna try.
Also, use your lining to finish the armhole of the top, just like so. If you want a detailed video on any of the techniques, let me know in the comment section. Now that the top is ready and the down part is also ready, go ahead and attach it together. So you first attach the main fabric to the main fabric of the top. Then attach your zipper. So I added 1 inch zipper allowance. So I'll go ahead and measure 1 inch from the center back. Then make a mark. Then attach the zipper, just like so. After attaching the zipper, I'll finish the seam allowance after the zipper. So just pin it, then take it to your sewing machine and then finish the seam allowance at the center back. Now we need to finish the inside of the dress. So to get a clean finish, flip the two linings such that you'll be able to match the two waist lines. That's the waist of the skirt and the bodice together. Pin it right side facing each other and take it to your sewing machine and sew it. So when after pinning, this is what you have. As you can see, it will be like a hole in between the lining and then the zip. So after sewing, flip everything inside to get something like this. Now we are going to finish the zipper side of the dress. So take it out the way you did it at first. Then place the lining onto the zipper using the zipper allowance line as guide and pin it together. Then sew it using the zipper stitching line as your guide. Then stitch the lining to the main fabric, just like so. Do the same on the other side of the dress to finish the zipper at the other side too. When you are stitching, please leave a little hole from the zipper to the hem side of the dress. Don't stitch that side, just leave it so that you'll be able to turn the fabric inside out. After stitching, flip everything inside out using the little hole.
Yeah, you switch things up, now you seem brand new to me. But was that even for? Was you playing your games? Was you really bored? No.
So after sewing, this is what you will have. Now you can use a needle and thread to finish the little hole you left. If this video was helpful, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Share so that other people will find the video. In our next video, we are going to make this simple dress with an inverted pleat and a simple puffy sleeve. Until then, bye bye.